everyone's kind of starts looking inwardly a little bit, and they're just trying to pitch themselves, and they get lost in the fact that it's way more than that.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. Nothing you hear on this show is legal or investment advice, nor is it an offer to buy or sell securities. Always consult your own legal and financial professionals before making decisions. Welcome back to another Capital Flow podcast. I'm your host, Dallon Schultz. We've got an incredible guest with us today. We got Ben Vega, who's the executive director of the Arizona Fund Manager Association. So on the show, if you've been listening before, you know that we bring in a lot of active fund managers, people raising capital, but we also bring in service providers and people that are there to support our industry and people that are moving forward with these goals. So we're really excited to have Ben here with us. He's going to talk a little bit about their organization, what they do, and actually share about an exciting event they have coming up. So Ben, appreciate you being with us.
Yeah, thanks, Dallon. It's an honor to be here.
So Ben, why don't we start and share with our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are?
Sure. Born and raised here in Arizona. You know, it's hard to find native Arizonans these days.
It's true.
Which is a good thing, actually. But born and raised here, went to high school at Phoenix Country Day School, small private school, and graduated, went to New York because I wanted something different than the desert. And went there for 4 years, obviously very opposite, but got great education there, great experience living there, and then ended up moving back, worked for my family company for about 8 years, and it was a real estate investment firm. So that was my first kind of taste of the investment industry, specifically real estate, and we were a land syndicator. So I was first learning how to raise money for the first time ever. We had a lot of Canadian investors, so I was kind of high net worth people raising that way. Then we got a little bit bigger to some private equity funds. So learned a lot those first 8 years, especially coming out of the recession at that time. So it was an exciting time in real estate for a lot of people and for us. Then after that, 2020 hit and made a big shift in careers because why not? It was 2020. Everyone was kind of doing crazy things. And I got an opportunity to go into nonprofit and worked at the Phoenix Children's Foundation. They were launching a really big campaign, and we're targeting principal gifts, which is 6 to 7 figure giving.
Wow.
So I loved capital raising. I loved just the relationship aspect of it. And that's all I got to do. It was just meet people. And I was like, this is great. I love this. So I spent 4 years doing that and probably met more people than I can count in this town. A lot of movers and shakers, a lot of people involved in various industries, which was great. And that's actually what led to this opportunity of AFMA, was they had just formed their board of directors. This is about 1.5 years ago. And the first thing they realized is our organization is growing. We need an executive director. And luckily with me, I kind of had both hats. I was real estate investments, so I knew the jargon of the investment industry, but I was also a nonprofit because we were a business trade, nonprofit organization. And so luckily they trusted me to kind of come in and run that organization. It's been about a little over a year now, and a lot of growth, a lot of exciting opportunities, and just really excited for things to come.
Yeah, you guys got a lot of really cool things happening, and I didn't realize that only been a year. I think we initially got connected about a year ago.
I think it was like the first month I was involved. You and I spoke. Yeah,
man, that's awesome. And we actually got connected through another service provider. That's correct. Here.
Yeah.
And his podcast episode actually just released. Matt Sorensen.
Hey,
yeah,
good for him.
Directed IRA.
Yeah.
So, it's all about relationships and connections. And you shared a little bit about how you got to where you are, and it was through the family business and raising capital and connections, and you love meeting people and talking to people. Let's dive into that a little bit more, because when people think of the idea of raising capital, for a lot of people, they tense up. Their blood pressure rises, and they're like, oh, I got to get into sales. Mm-hmm. So let's take people through your process, just your, mindset around really what does raising capital mean to you?
I think I'll start with the biggest mistake I think people make, and that's having a transactional mindset. If you go in with that, it's people can just feel that and read that, whether they're conscious of it or not. And immediately, any type of connection, any type of trust is just never going to occur. So you have to kind of reprogram your brain of like almost not even thinking of the end result that you want for yourself. You almost want to think, I just want to, with a true heart and true intention, just make relationships and make connections with people. And I think too many people go into that with that nervous energy, correct? Because they want something. They want some type of approval. They want some type of close. They want something to come from it. But that's having like a future mindset, right? So if you can have a really present mindset, which we probably all try to do in our day-to-day lives, right? Which is hard, is just creating that connection, seeing if you can bring value to that person. And in turn, then they see maybe value they can get out of you. And if things don't work out, there's no problem with that. At the end of the day, you've just kind of grown your network. So I think going in with it without expecting anything in return and meeting people from various industries too, because you just never know what's going to come from it. I mean, that's how I ended up in this position, because when I went in to interview for it, I was like, oh, I knew more than half the board members already, just from conversation, just from LinkedIn outreach, just from conferences, just remembering their names, and they remembered me, which was great. And I think in capital raising, it's no different. Everyone out there has a product, has an offering. It's going to fit their box or it's not. But at the end of the day, you want you to kind of fit their box just as a person. And you'll never know what the future is going to bring.
As you were talking, it made me think of one of my favorite quotes when it comes to just value in relationships. And that's value follows where... We're going to need to cut that. Money follows. So it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes. Money follows where value leads. And I know when you and I connected about a year ago, there's just a very calm demeanor about you, very trustworthy. I feel like we connected very, very quickly. Yeah. And that's something that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that might be one of your natural talents and gifts, but you've also had years of experience just really honing that in and realizing and understanding what it means to make connection. And there's one of my favorite books called The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. Have you read that one?
I haven't, actually.
Highly recommend it. Okay. Really, really good book, but it's all about just leading with value and how to give. And I love what you said about really going in without any expectations. Just go in, have a conversation, connect. You don't know what's going to come from it. And for those people that are nervous about networking or talking or connecting, what advice could you share or tips could you share with them?
That is a great question, because I think just being authentic at the end of the day, taking yourself out of the expectation, which I kind of said earlier. I think when you go in with that nervous energy because you want something out of it, but at the end of the day, like everybody wants something out of something, but really they want approval at the end of the day. I think that's what kind of people want. So, I mean, if you want to go in there and meet people, whether it's walking into the room for a first time, whether it's meeting an individual for lunch or for dinners for the first time, I think just being, I know I said it before, but just being present-minded as much as you can, like finding that commonality. I read recently once someone, I'm trying to remember who it was, but when they first meet someone, it's about complimenting them, and then connecting on something mutual. So if you can find something that you can compliment about, and then if you can also connect with them on something that you both share, then you kind of take yourself out of that mindset of being more selfish or being more self-centered about what you want out of that conversation. Treat it more of just kind of giving something back to them in a way.
And you mentioned earlier, coming in and not treating, one of the biggest mistakes is coming in and viewing that relationship as transactional. If the connection is done right, there will be a transaction, and we're all well aware of that.
Yeah.
But there's a time and a place for it. And if you come in viewing it as a transaction, people pick up on it. It's just, you show up differently than when you show up just really wanting to provide value. So what have you seen? Because you connect with some people that are investing and contributing millions of dollars into some of the nonprofits that you work for, and as you were raising capital, have there been any common themes or threads that you've recognized in really what helps move those relationships along?
You know what I've noticed, especially in this town, which I think is separate from other areas of the country, is that, like I said earlier, I'm a native here and I barely know anyone else that is. But what's interesting from that is that you don't have to have this kind of legacy or this generational connections, family connections. You don't have to be like plugged in. Because everyone's here trying to grow themselves, grow their business, get connected. And if anything, even if you're in the same industry, even if you're almost competing for the same audience, there's this feeling of like mutual, respect for one, but mutual support. Like we're all kind of in this together. It's like, oh, let's all kind of like all ships want to be like lifted with the tide, right? And everyone wants to contribute to that, which is cool. So I've kind of noticed that in our group in our association, as well as this town, is that everyone's kind of collectively together trying to help one another. And I think that's one of the initiatives I'm trying to make, is that there's so many people that live here that feel like they're on an island. Whether you're an investment fund manager and you feel like you're the only one raising money, you feel like you're the only one launching your fund, or you're a family office or a limited partner and you feel like, I live here, but I'm not connected in the community. I have connections from where I grew up, but I'm not really from here. And it's like, well, someone needs to be kind of leading that charge of connecting that, like I like to call it the quiet capital that's like sleeping here, but is huge here, with the people in your backyard, which is your investment managers, which are the individuals that want to partner with you to really have your best interest in mind. Because the large institutions in New York, in Chicago, Silicon Valley, they don't know you.
Yeah.
But the people here do.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into really the mission and the focus of the Arizona Fund Association.
Sure.
So let's dive into that. What is their primary focus? What are they looking to do? What are you guys looking to accomplish with this?
Right now, there's probably like two areas, I would say. We, as an investment community, there's not really an ecosystem, I would say. It is, but it's small. And like I mentioned earlier, people kind of feel like their own island. And our goal is, who are all, the key players in town, maybe the larger fund managers that have relocated here and have a big presence, but also those emerging fund managers that are launching their second fund or their first fund or they're new. We want to create that ecosystem right now, and that's really just based on networking, but creating an intimate networking environment, not something where it's hundreds of people that get lost in the crowd, one that's kind of almost invite only, has that personal touch, where you can get together on a monthly, even twice a month, which is what we're doing, for a mixer, a roundtable discussion, a panel discussion, or just like a happy hour or a breakfast, where you have that time to meet other individuals in your industry. They don't necessarily have to be like, if you're in real estate, don't have to be in real estate. They could be in private equity. They could be in VC. They could be a hedge fund or like an integral fund or even like a litigation fund. And the education you get out of that and those connections are just so eye-opening and just kind of help you broaden your perspective a little bit more and make you feel connected. So that's really the ultimate goal, and kind of like the micro scale, is get people connected and get people knowing each other, and so that there is that mutual support so that everyone can kind of help create these organic partnerships over time. On the larger scale is Arizona. We know we have great infrastructure here. We have a great community. We have great people, but nobody in the rest of the country knows that. Nobody.
I think we kind of want to keep it that way.
Yeah, right.
To an extent. Right?
To an extent, we do. But we see other cities like the Miamis or the Austin, Texases that are rising to the level of like what Chicago and Boston and New York, Silicon Valley are. And it's like, hey, we are a great community that's continually growing. So many industries are coming here. Big companies are coming here. And even like in the tech space, which we can talk about a little bit later, just the growth there. And that's attracting a lot more people. So how do we go, let's say, like I was in North Carolina last month and I was talking to people about, we're from Arizona, and their perception of Arizona is maybe they kind of know real estate and we're a desert. And with semiconductor coming in, that's getting a little more international flair. So like, okay, well, you know what? Let's really change the optics of who Arizona is. And that'll attract more capital here, right? But now we're getting ahead of ourselves. So let's start at the very beginning. Let's start working on more lobbying advocacy efforts for the locally based managers out here, get them, a little more notoriety. Then let's even go out to, California and the Midwest and start advocating, for those managers and advocating just for our industry, because this is a great place to live for so many reasons. And if we can get someone who's in California that's paying a state income tax that they're not happy with, or they're living in the Midwest where the temperatures are not something that they enjoy, you have Arizona as a great hub. And a lot of these individuals already have second or third homes here sometimes. So why would you not want your employees to be based here as well? Well, why would you not want a satellite office or even relocate your entire firm here in Arizona? So our goal for AFMA is, over the next couple of years, is how can we change that national perception of what Arizona is as a finance community and as an investment community.
And that's not an easy task. I mean, when you mentioned, when talking to people, you were in North Carolina, and when you mentioned Arizona, they're like, oh, real estate and desert. I tell people everything in Arizona is either dead or it wants you dead. But we have so much more to offer. And it's like my experience. I actually grew up in upstate New York. You went to school in the city. Mm-hmm. So when I say I'm from New York, what do people think? The city, right? The city was like a small speck on the map compared to the rest of the state.
Sure.
Beautiful country, but part of the reason I live in Arizona now is because you don't have to shovel sunshine. But Arizona is drawing a lot of people in, and there's so much opportunity here. Mm-hmm. I mean, so much opportunity. Property taxes are low,
yep.
Right? There's room to grow. So I love what you guys are doing and the mission and the focus. But that is a big task. So like, what is your primary, I guess, focal point on rebranding, if you will, or the perception of Arizona when it comes to fund managers and being a financial hub?
I think especially for individuals or endowments or pensions or any LP, really, we need to change that perception that like you don't need to have black in the front of your name to have them manage your investments. You don't need to have these huge, institutions that are capable of that. When you have locally based people in your backyard that are there that can know you, and this gets back to our conversation about relationships, that are willing to have that personal relationship with you, that understand what your needs are and understand and can work with you. You're not going to get that if you keep putting your money into these groups that are not even based here or have no vested interest in Arizona.
You're just a number to them.
You're just a number at the end of the day. And some people, maybe they want that because they feel there's maybe more trust there. But if you look at the numbers and if you look at how things span out, and you look at the talent that we really actually have here, I think it would be shocking to you that the opportunities and options that are here. So that's why we have like our big conference that we do. That's why we're growing, because we want to broadcast that out to the public to let them know, hey, here's the managers that are here. Here's the different sectors that they specialize in. And they're starting to get national attention. So why wouldn't you look here first before you start looking nationally?
Yeah, there's so much opportunity, and just getting the word out, getting the connections with the right people. And you guys have been doing a phenomenal job. We know people that are a part of your platform, and they're pretty well known across the country too. So I can see it just having this compounding effect over time. So, well, let's talk a little bit about your event. You guys got an event coming up in March. Mm-hmm. So share with us a little bit about what that's all about.
Sure. So it's called LIFT AZ, which stands for Local Investment Fund Talent of Arizona, another acronym. This town loves acronyms. And it's a full day summit this year that will have various panel discussions. We'll have a roundtable aspect of it. But one thing I'm really focusing on this year is the networking aspect of it. There's a lot of conferences that I've been to, and probably you've been to as well, where it's just like educational panel discussion, keynote, panel, over and over again. And we've done that the last few years, and you'd have a break in between. And I found myself, everyone's in the lobby, and I'm like pulling people in, like, hey, the next speaker's on, let's do this. But then I'm like, well, what am I doing? People are so excited to be here that they get to talk with one another because everyone's in the same room at the same time. Why not have the conference based more around that? So this year we have a lot more kind of like mini like breakout sessions, a little more curated networking in between our speakers to allow people to have that ability. It's going to be at the Heard Museum on March 12th this year. And we also have an aspect of it where you'll be in the museum as well, which will be great to kind of get people to like leave the conference a little bit, go off in smaller groups and have that time to really connect with one another. So that's really the goal this year, is to get people connected.
I love that. How can, if somebody's interested in attending, and you don't have to be local to Arizona, correct? This
No,
is
it is-
open
yep.
to anyone.
Correct.
Anyone. So how can people find out more information? How can they get access to that?
Sure. So easiest way to do it is if you go to the Arizona Fund Manager Association website.
Hey, as a business owner or entrepreneur, one of your biggest struggles is raising capital. Maybe you've gone to the bank, maybe you've been turned down, or maybe you just have never thought of before speaking to investors. The reason the people here at Copless Pro, Dallon and Paul, have decided to partner with us over here at Capital Connections is we not only teach people how to attract and raise capital, we actually put you in the rooms where the capital flows. That's right. My name is Brad Blazer, and I've raised over $2 billion. And over the last 5 years, I have personally taught and mentored hundreds of people around the world on how to attract, raise, and close capital so they can be doing something bigger in life. But it's not only the coaching and mentoring. While we're working together, I put you in rooms of curated events with family offices, broker-dealers, and registered investment advisory firms. That's right. We create the proximity to my network because we know that proximity is power. It's our belief and our finding that no other company out there offering services in the capital raising space is doing that, which is why we have forged this strategic relationship. If you'd like to learn more, click the link below that's provided here in this podcast. And this is Brad Blazer saying we can't wait to work together.
We have a web page there for Lift AZ 2026. It lists out all of the key. It'll have our speakers listed. It'll have registration there. It'll have all information for even sponsorship opportunities for any vendors or service providers that want to be recognized there. Everything you need to know will be on our website. So that's kind of the central hub.
Awesome. Yeah, and we're obviously going to plan on attending and check it out and get connected. Yeah. And we'll include that in the show notes as well. Great. Of this episode. We've been talking a lot about connection, and this has been on my mind a lot. I would say ever since COVID 2020, that rocked a lot of people in so many different ways. And one of the things that I think people are still working through, even, I mean, we're 5-6 years past that, is the connection piece, the connection aspect. For whatever reason, when crap hit the fan in 2020, it's like people forgot how to be people. And then I think that coupled with the ramp up of AI over the last few years, like there's been this disconnect in being able to connect, and as connected as we are as a people, I feel like we've never been so disconnected. So I love this focus about connection. I love the focus of bringing business and opportunities to your backyard, connecting with very, very talented and experienced fund managers that you can actually have a real conversation with versus somebody sitting up in an ivory tower in a big city. Mm-hmm. What was it about this connection, or this I guess, not the connection, you guys obviously recognized a need. Yeah. You recognized something similar that I just shared and expressed. What was it that truly made you realize the one thing that we feel like people are missing is connection more than anything else?
It's interesting because I came to that conclusion speaking with a lot of family offices recently that are located here, because they are at their desk, they're getting offering after offering after offering and seeing if it fits their boxes, looking at it. But I'm realizing they don't have a community or a network of really getting to see these people off paper. So the conversations I've been having with them, and even with our board, was, hey, we've captured a lot of the locally based investment managers here in town. What's kind of the next step? And the next step is like, well, there's a whole community of individuals, which are the limited partners, investors, even endowments, from the universities, and even the pensions we've been talking to too, is that they have a tendency of where they're just so isolated in their world with analyzing, where they should be placing and allocating their money. But they don't have that opportunity to actually connect with the individual, who's running it. So our thought is to expand AFMA more from just the fund managers to the allocators. We should have really our goal, and our goal for Lyft this year too, is can we have it where it's equal number of allocators, equal number of managers in the room? Because one, of course, our managers want to meet the allocators because they're the ones who that's going to fuel their deals, of course. But the allocators, they get the opportunity finally to really have just like almost a buffet of everything in front of them that they can see. Not only can they learn from it, but see what's being offered to them. And they have the ability to make that connection right there in person instead of just seeing something like on paper on their desk. So a lot of the family offices I've been speaking with are showing more interest in joining an association like ours just for that reason alone. And I love that you mentioned 2020 and COVID, because I think we're still kind of coming out. No one likes being isolated like that, but then weirdly people feel comfortable with being isolated too, but they don't want to be. So something needs to exist to kind of drag people out of that comfort level and get them out into the sunlight a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. But something has to exist and someone kind of has to like push people and nudge them. And I think that's what my goal really is to find those individuals in our community, which there are a lot, to kind of bring them out, get them involved, get them networking. And we have so many individuals in this town that are not even really here full time. As we know, we have tons of snowbirds, we have tons of Canadians, we have tons of people from the Midwest that their communities are back home, but they live here half the year. And it's like, well, you don't want to be isolated for half the year in your home, in like North Scottsdale. You want to be involved in the community too. So my goal is to really kind of get involved with those individuals. We actually partner with the Canadian Arizona Business Council, Glenn Williamson, who runs that. And he gave a statistic at our last Lyft AZ conference. He said at the Scottsdale Air Park up there, he said over 65% of those private planes are Canadian. And I was like, that's a big number. But that shows that like there's a lot of individuals here that live here that are flying in and out of here constantly, but they're not plugged into the community at all. They probably want to be to an extent. So I think we're putting that responsibility on us as an association to connect with those individuals and hopefully get them involved.
This conference that Paul and I attended in Austin just a week ago, we had an opportunity to listen from Coach Michael Burt. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Bald guy like me, similar hairdo. Awesome speaker, awesome mentor, awesome coach. And he shared a quote by, I think it was Winston Churchill. He said, "People are silently begging to be led." And I feel like that's what you guys are doing with your fund manager association. People want to be led. They want to be connected. They want to be shown what that next relationship is, what that next step could look like. And so what you guys are creating, I feel like, is that ecosystem that's going to attract the right people in that want a little bit more. So I think it's absolutely incredible what you guys are doing. If there's somebody that's newer to this industry, newer to this space, newer to raising capital, what tips, tricks, advice could you share with them that you wish you knew when you got started?
I'm saying it over and over again, but get plugged in, get involved. Even if it's not like, I'm not even pitching our association. There's so many different associations, groups, even in the if my background's with nonprofit, even in the nonprofit world, you've got to create that sense of kind of camaraderie, community, and obviously naturally and organically connections and will come from that and growth will come from that. But if you can just get plugged into any area of this valley somehow and be a part of a group or an organization that's working towards some goal together, I think that's the only way you're going to progress. I've talked to some fund managers that have been, doing their fund for decades and they're still just on friends and family. They've just been doing that. And I asked them, I was like, okay, you probably want to do more, but why is it just that? And it's like, well, they don't have the business development mindset. They don't have the social kind of like willingness to go out there and put themselves out there. They want to do something.
They got comfortable.
It's all about comfort. So the only way we grow is kind of getting uncomfortable.
Comfort is the enemy of progress.
Yeah.
I think that was P.T. Barnum from The Greatest Showman. I remember that.
It's well said. Yeah.
I saw that quote. I absolutely loved it. So for we talk a lot about connection, about leading with value. I share that money follows where value leads. In your experience, what's one of the best ways people can lead with value?
You know what? I think it's authenticity in a way. And it's kind of humbling because you have to acknowledge what your strengths are and also what your weaknesses are.
And we don't like doing that.
And we don't like doing that. But people really respect the transparency. People really respect almost like the vulnerability. So even if you're a fund manager, it's like just own what you're good at and what you know, but then also be very realistic about where your weaknesses are with things. And especially if you're going and launching your fund or you're growing your business, you got to know where you fit, because if you try to put on every single hat, I mean, that's great if you do that, but for one, you'll probably burn out. And two, you're going to have weaknesses there because that's just not the talents that have been given to you. So I think that if that's one of the first things you can really do, which is humbling, is acknowledge exactly where those strengths and weaknesses are, then you can kind of like pitch a better plan for yourself of what you need to be doing or what you can do.
In what ways could somebody gain that clarity for themselves?
Oh, man. I think it's putting yourself out there more. You know, it's like we talked about getting comfortable. I think you got to make yourself uncomfortable, and then you can kind of see where you gravitate towards and what's better for you. Not necessarily where your successes are, but where you just naturally tend to go. And sometimes maybe it doesn't make sense or it doesn't align with what you thought your business plan really was, or even like the capital that you wanted to pursue. You know, a lot of people get into this mindset of like, okay, I got to hit the family offices, and that's what I want. So I got to spend the money to get the data, you know, the list, and you kind of hit that over and over again. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that's not your strength. Maybe you need assistance from someone. You know, maybe you need, you know, a group or a platform or even a software program or something that can assist you in that area. And not just for capital raising, but for any, whether it's like fund admin services, you know, whether it's just accounting, legal. It's like we need kind of that team that really fills all those areas to be successful. And I think so many people want to just do it all themselves, but it's hard.
There's a lot of things you're talking about that just keep coming back to this thought I shared earlier, or that I wanted to share earlier. Your ego is not your amigo. And these people that want to do everything themselves, that truthfully is the inability to acknowledge and recognize and accept that you're not great at everything. Some of the most successful people I met in my entire life, within seconds of asking them what they do, you'll have clarity on what they're good at and what they're not good at. And so in regards to being authentically you, as you were talking about, people appreciate that. If you have clarity on your strengths and on your weaknesses and you're able to communicate that, then it's easier to identify opportunities to partner. It's easier to identify mutual beneficial relationships and connections. And I found that one of the easiest ways to gain clarity on what your strengths and weaknesses are, just ask yourself what energizes you and what drains you.
Yep.
And then figure out whatever energizes you, how does that adapt to that specific role or vehicle or opportunity that you want to look at.
Yeah.
So for you, what are some of those things that energize you, and what are some of those things that drain you?
Oh, energizing is just getting out there, meeting someone new every single day, learning something from them, and then also finding what value I can bring them in or help them with. A lot of our members, you know, it's something that maybe if they're an emerging fund manager, maybe they just don't have the budget for that. But I'm always saying, hey, keep me as a resource. If there's any connections I can make or introductions I can make or help you along their way, especially with some of these young professionals, you know, our big, one of the things that motivates me too is I've met with a lot of individuals in college that are finance majors that are part of like their hedge fund club, you know, at ASU or GCU or U of A, and they don't have a network yet. Of course, you know, when you're in college, it's like your network is your school, you know, maybe hopefully sports or a fraternity, but not with your career. So I always feel like, man, that's what I really want to help them with, because they have that drive and that passion. But I know for them to kind of get the legs going is they need to have a runway. And that runway is usually like networking for individuals that can give opportunities to them. So if I can assist in any way whatever that is, whether it's with internships opportunities, whether it's with, exposing them to job opportunities in paths that they probably never even knew existed. That's what drives me, is if I can assist those younger professionals, for sure. And of course, me being an Arizona native, one of the biggest things is just advocating for Arizona. I will do that forever. I just believe in this city and this town so much. I've seen how much it's grown. I've seen how much attention it's getting. And I just love this community. And even these investment managers, they're just, for one, so intelligent and they're so capable. And I just feel like they deserve to kind of have that platform to get out there. So to answer your question of what energizes me, that definitely does.
And that's one thing I remember from our very first conversation. We had connected, and before we jumped off, you're like, Dallon, what do you need? Who can I connect you with? Like that's just your go-giver mentality. And every single conversation we've had since then, it's no different. So it's not like it was just this, you said that because you were told by a sales coach that that's the right thing to say. Like, it's really who you are, and you've realized that it's one of the best ways, if not the best way, to really build true connection with people. And I think we fall into this trap of when people want to connect with family offices, when they want to connect with large money managers or investment advisors, that how do I say this without, we almost feel like we need to treat them a different way, or we don't know how to talk to them. But what's been your experience with that?
I think that's, if you step back and you listen to conversations, a lot of times people are just talking about themselves, or they're talking about their firm, and it's almost like this kind of pseudo interview in a way. And I found myself doing that, especially because we have, monthly events all the time, and we're bringing together individuals, whether they're RIAs, wealth managers with the fund managers, or if it's, just investors looking to chat to people. And that's where I think the connection kind of gets lost. It's like everyone's kind of starts looking inwardly a little bit, and they're just trying to pitch themselves. And they get lost in the fact that it's way more than that. I think you have to almost put yourself in that familiar, role, which is what I kind of like about the students that I talked with, is like, they don't know that yet. They're kind of just, they're just living their life and they're enjoying, and they're just happy to meet everyone. So if you can almost take that like young, youthful energy and just be like, oh, I'm just excited just to like meet something new or learn something new. And then you kind of give yourself more to that person, because then you're asking more questions. And when you've heard the example forever, it's like, you're not learning anything if you're talking the whole time, right? But we all have that default a little bit.
I'm glad you took it there, because I wanted to bring this up. I'm much better at networking now than I was before. I'd actually prefer speaking on a stage in front of a few hundred people than networking. That's more my comfort zone, where for somebody else, that might be completely terrifying. But I remember the very first real estate conference I went to, any big seminar I've ever attended, and presentations were going on, people were up on stage, and then there was a break, and everybody got up and started networking and handing out business cards. I'm like, what are you guys doing sitting down? You're making me feel really uncomfortable. And I didn't talk to anyone. I was so out of my comfort zone. And what I realized, it's because I didn't know, how important it was to build connections. I didn't realize how important relationships were. I was there to learn, not to connect with people, but that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, is connection. And two, I didn't know how to network. And what I realized is it's much, much easier than we make it out to be in our minds. You just ask questions. And I know people, because I've been at events and you've been at events, and we naturally have this default of, hey, look at me, this is what I've done, this is what I'm good at. I think some of that happens intentionally, and I believe a lot of that happens unintentionally or subconsciously, because people get uncomfortable. When you're meeting somebody new, especially if it's a big wealth manager or somebody with a lot of money, you may not know what questions to ask. So you just default to, hey, look at me, this is my resume, this is what I do. And unintentionally you end up ruining I wouldn't say ruining, maybe slowing the progression of what could be a very good connection or relationship. So for whoever's listening to this, if you're one of those people that's terrified, just ask questions. And you mentioned this with the young kids in college. They're excited. They don't know a lot, so they're asking more questions. The successful people I know, they love educating. They love mentoring. If you ask questions, if you show interest, if you show curiosity, you're going to build relationships extremely quickly with people.
I agree.
So awesome. Ben, this has been incredible. Thanks for coming in and sharing with us a little bit about your background and really your focus on the Arizona Fund Manager Association and what you guys are doing. So really excited to attend that event here in March. For those of you listening, go ahead and head to the website, Arizona Fund Manager Association. Find the tickets for Lift AZ, correct?
That's
Lift
correct.
AZ 26. And come in, network. You don't have to be local to Arizona, but we'd love to have you there. Connect with other people that are growth minded and just really trying to improve their lives and those around them. And thanks again, Ben. Really appreciate you coming in.
No, thank you, Dallon. I had a great time. Appreciate it.
And we'll catch everyone on the next episode.